but in the context of what's been happening in the last 24 hours, and that is Jimmy Carr. Now, I don't know if you heard what we were discussing yesterday, but now, so I don't know if you know about this Netflix special, but Jimmy Carr did this Netflix special where he made a joke about the Holocaust. And he said that, and I'm sort of paraphrasing it, and it won't be nearly as funny when I regale it to you secondhand, but he said something along the lines of that the Holocaust was, terrible. It killed 6 million Jewish people, but also a number of, and I quote him, gypsies were also killed. Why does no one ever talk about the positives? Now, he has every right to make that joke, and, I find the double standards around some of it a bit annoying, because there are certain people that make certain jokes and certain other people that can't make certain jokes. Well, now, the Celebrity Big Brother winner, Paddy Doherty, who is from the travelling community, has said that now the police should investigate Jimmy Carr over this, what he's calling, disgusting joke. The big fat gypsy wedding star told the Sunday Mirror he should be investigated by the police. It wasn't a joke. He's talking about mass murder being a positive. Would he be allowed to say that about black people killed by the Ku Klux Klan? Well, to discuss this, on the left we have Salman Shaheen, journalist and Labour counsel for Isleworth, and on the right Connor Tomlinson, political commentator with Young Voices. Both join me now. Morning to you both.
Morning, Cristo.
Thank you for taking... Oh, no, OK. Connor Tomlinson, you're on the left, and Salman Shaheen, you're on the right.
But not politically.
No, not politically, but yeah. OK, thank you for joining me this morning here on Talk Radio. So, I mean, Salman Shaheen, it's near the knuckle. Some people would say it's not very funny, but is it something that you should be prosecuted for?
I don't think we should see Jimmy Carr prosecuted for this, but I think the crux of the debate is, should he have said it? And ultimately, good humour should be about, I think, punching up, not down. And the problem we face here is that the travelling community is still the most victimised community in the UK. It is, polls have consistently showed that they face far more discrimination than any other ethnic group in the UK, and are the most disliked of all ethnic groups, according to polls that we've seen, including one in very recent weeks. Now, the issue here is that sections of the media and society have allowed an almost form of legitimised racism. And you were quite right when you made the point earlier, would we say this about black people? No, we would not. And it has to be about what is the boundary of acceptability in terms of humour. And that shouldn't be about prosecution or cancelling or censorship. I don't think it should be about that. It should be about what society deems acceptable. And Jimmy Carr, you're right, has every right to make a joke. And sections of society, as they have every right to criticise him for doing that.
All right. So, Connor, I guess you're going to be against that. Why are you such a snowflake, Connor? Why can't you just accept that some people don't like certain jokes? We don't make jokes that are outwardly racist or homophobic, and so why is this any different?
Well, actually, I didn't like the joke very much, just generally because I thought the delivery was a bit flat, but he should definitely be allowed to say it. And I disagree with Salman's characterisation that we should be punching up, not down, for multiple reasons. First being, well, number one, if you're going to exclude certain groups from having jokes made about them, you're treating them with kid gloves. You're belittling them. You're setting soft bigotry of low expectations. You're essentially saying you're too sensitive as an entire group, and you're speaking on behalf of the group, to listen to a joke that might be offensive about you. My ancestors were Irish. I give you full permission to joke about the potato famine that killed plenty of people. That's totally fine by me. The second one is, if you're going to say, oh, we're going to punch up, not down, you're implying a hierarchy of group identities. And you say, oh, we can't make those jokes about black people. We can't make those jokes about gay people. Well, why not? Who said in those groups that you can't joke about them? And you also can't set an objective level of who is up and who is down. For example, can Barack Obama make a joke about my skin colour? Because comparatively, he's much richer and much more powerful than I will ever be. So I don't think we can construct an idea that society deems we can't joke about this. I mean, Salman,
by your argument, because the ethnicity of the traveller community, and as you say that they, but by your own words, that they are a community that faces prejudice. Essentially, are you saying that, okay, if it's an ethnicity that doesn't then face much prejudice, it's okay to joke about that ethnicity, but not others that have faced prejudice?
I'm suggesting that we should move away from ethnic-based jokes. I'm not saying, and I'm absolutely not saying Jimmy Carr should be cancelled. I'm not saying he should be censored. I'm not saying there should be laws to ban these sorts of things. I'm just saying what counts as good humour. Now, in the past, you used to have racist bigots like Jim Davidson going on big, massive platforms and legitimizing what was, at the time, a very serious situation in which black people were routinely discriminated against at every level in the UK. Now, the racial prejudice is far lower now in society, thankfully, than it was back when Jim Davidson was making those jokes. And that is partly, and I think partly, a testament to the alternative comedians who rallied against that sort of lowest common denominator humour, where people looked at those sections of society who didn't have a voice. And it's all about whether
isn't there an argument, Simon? I will come back to you, Connor, but there's an argument to say that a lot of those comedians, though, they also, I remember hearing jokes about Greek people. I remember hearing jokes, look at Stavros. I remember hearing jokes about, all different kinds of ethnicities. It wasn't just the black community that was focused. I mean, as Connor just alluded to, Englishman, Irishman, and a Scotsman. That was also a big kind of set of jokes. And if what I worry about is the double standard. And that we seem to say it's okay to joke about certain communities. For instance, I was referencing yesterday Sophie Duker, who is a comedian that was on the BBC, who made a let's kill whiteys joke on the Frankie Boyle show and was cleared by the BBC because that joke was acceptable. And if we're going to have this double standard, I say we should have no standard. If everyone is fair game, then isn't that okay, Salman?
Everyone is fair game. Anyone can say anything they want to. It's about what reaction they get. I wouldn't have laughed at a kill whiteys joke. Someone chose to make that joke, and some people might have found it offensive. Some people might not. I think we're discussing here the reaction against Jimmy Carr's comment, which has come from various groups like Hope Not Hate, and of course the Celebrity Big Brother contestant who was from that background. And I think rightly so, people are coming out and saying, I find this offensive, I don't find it funny. And that's not, again, I reiterate, it's not to say that there should be a law banning it, but we have every right to discuss.
Connor, if unfortunately someone looks at that joke, someone fairly moronic, but there are moronic people that exist, and think, well, actually, you know what, it is fine to then show prejudice towards someone from the travelling community, or to be bigoted, or not give a job to someone and not give an opportunity, and it increases prejudice. Is there not an argument that Salman is making to say, well, look, there's no place for jokes like that in a modern society?
No, because that's not measurable. And Jimmy Carr didn't incite that. He didn't condone it. If actually you watch the rest of the special, he says the 3 reasons why that joke is good. He said, and I don't necessarily think the joke is hilarious, but he says it's poignant because it's offensive, so we're walking the line, and also it's educational, because most people don't even know about the execution of blacks, gays, homosexuals and Jehovah's Witnesses alongside Jews in the Holocaust. And he also said, oh, we say never forget. Well, this is my way of never forgetting. I keep bringing it up and making you shocked by it so it stays present in your memory. I'd like to ask Salman, first of all, he doesn't believe there should be a law against this. Well, actually, the Blair government, which I presume that you think was a good Prime Minister, if Jimmy Carr had tweeted this joke, he would currently possibly be in prison for it under Section 127 of the Communications Act. So we actually police speech differently in person and online. Thank you to Labour policy. So I hope you're going to be campaigning against that in future in your constituency. And also, what can we joke about? So we're saying ethnicity is off the table. What's the difference between gay jokes, for example, or height? You can't change your height. It's purely visual, and people get discriminated based on that. I know plenty of women who won't date blokes shorter than 6 foot. So can we make height jokes which you can't change? What is acceptable?
Well, let me answer your Labour point first. I'm not in favour of censorship, in general. And I think you can, as I've consistently said, I think you can joke about whatever you want to. But I can also say, I don't find that funny. And I think that's our right. That's free speech. And that's the contract we enter into. And when you make a joke that you think might be controversial, you're aiming it at a certain section of society that you think will find it funny. Fine, that's your right to do it. But you'll also get criticised by other sections of society. I think that's quite reasonable, in terms of a free speech contract that we have in society. Now, What I'm really getting at with the traveling community is, as a journalist, I've visited traveller sites. I've spoken to both Roma and Irish travellers and seen firsthand the level of discrimination they face, and it's really devastating to them. And it weighs on a people's psyche if they are constantly at the butt of jokes, also at the sharp end of prejudice. And I think that's something we have to have sympathy for. Whether you choose to make jokes about it, that's your own business.
But Selman, isn't there an argument to say that we all just need to, I get fat jokes a lot on Twitter. I get gay jokes. I get all sorts. I'm not the tallest person either, and I have friends that joke with me about that, and part of it is having to develop a bit of a thicker skin. Part of it is I don't mind being the butt of the joke, and isn't just a part of the fact that what we're missing here, and it's not nice, but comedy is cruel. Comedy isn't kind. Comedy, you laughing at someone falling over. If you look at things like Laurel and Hardy, comedy is, there is a streak of cruelty through comedy, devious, delicious cruelty, and we can't legislate against that. We can't start stopping that because that is comedy.
Never been in favour of legislating against it. But look, I mean, what you deem funny and what you deem disgusting is your own business. What you choose to be offended by is your own business. But come on, it's a Holocaust joke. Since when has that been acceptable?
I don't know, Connor, when has it ever been acceptable? Aren't there some subjects that are just off limits? I mean, we do have hate speech laws in this country,
which are all wrong.
We can't. Well, no, because I don't believe that you should be able to. Maybe I'm contradicting myself, but I don't believe that I should be able to stand on a box in Trafalgar Square and calling for for gay people to be killed.
No, that's different. That's different, Cristo. Hate speech laws is criminalising your intent to hate a particular group, whereas an incitement to violence, a threat, is already criminally actionable. So all you're doing is policing the thought in someone's head, saying, "Oh, it's extra worse if you hate the group of skin colour they're with, rather than you just hate."
But is it not hate? Okay, if I put a sign up in my shop to say that I don't like a certain community or I don't want to serve a certain community, would that not be considered hate speech? Is that the world you want to live in, where I can say to someone, I don't like you because you're black, or I don't like you because you're gay? Because I'm not sure I want to live in that world either.
No, I don't want to live in that world. That's why we use cultural pressure and, for example, business boycotts if they do something we don't like. The same's happening with Ben and Jerry's, for example, wading into left-wing politics, and I won't buy the rice.
But I don't want to wade into. I don't want a business boycott. I don't want to go to a shop and see a sign up saying no gays, because then I'd have then the onus is on me to have to go to a different shop.
Obviously, neither do I. But if the person chooses to do that, then they're going to lose out on a very large customer base.
There might be lots of people
walk away, and they're going to suffer because
there might not. There might be lots of homophobic people that then think, well, great, I want to go and shop in that shop. There might be lots of racist people that think, brilliant, I'll go to that shop because I won't encounter a black person. Isn't that the role of the state to stop that happening?
No, it's not the role of the state to stop that happening, because the state can never identify what is prejudice and what isn't. As with the fact that there's no racial protection against white people, for example. The ADL, the Anti-Defamation League in America, has changed the definition of racism in line with the BLM protests recently to say, like Salman, it's punching up, not down. So that means it's impossible to be racist.
Well, that's wrong. That I don't support. You should be able to prejudice any race.
It is wrong. But the people who are going to set these laws are going to make that the law. So despite your compassion, Cristo, and I agree with you, we shouldn't be prejudiced individually towards each other, but the state can't police this personally.
All right. Okay, I'll just let Salman respond to that then, because, it is a good point in as much as where is the line about the state intervening when it comes to thought, and secondly, some of us do have horrible thoughts. Some of us perhaps aren't nice. Some of us may want to have that sign up in our shops, and maybe we'd go out of business because of it. Isn't that just free speech taken to the nth degree?
In some ways, I would agree with Connor that the ideal should be society should regulate itself, not the government, okay? So I would much rather live in a world where people didn't think it was acceptable and the government didn't have to regulate it, but we don't live in that world. And there have been points in society when there have been extreme levels of racism that the state has had to step in. And let's go back to the Holocaust. It didn't come from nowhere. It wasn't just one one extremist who decided to launch a campaign of ethnic cleansing. It came about because society had considered it acceptable to be racist against Jews, to be homophobic, to be prejudiced against disabled people and against travellers. And that extremist built upon that and used it.
All right, Connor, I will give you the final word, but just to pick up on your point, there isn't always the mechanism of society to be able to reject that outright prejudice, because say I apply for a job and I've got a funny surname, Fufas, and I apply for that job, and immediately that employer says I'm going to throw that in the bin because I don't like that surname. Then I don't have a recourse to that. I can't say, well, I'm not going to shop in that business, because I'll never know that prejudice has been levelled against me. So there isn't always that natural societal recourse that would mean that laws don't need to be in place for it, is there?
One, I disagree in that if you want to have the most amount of talent, then you're going to have to expel your bigotries individually and then hire who's best for the job. And that means one business will outpace the other. They'll eclipse their customer base and they'll do better in the long term. Though I can agree with you, for example, on blind resume servers. We take the names off, we take the gender off, etc. And then you offer the interview, and whoever shows up on the day is whoever's the most qualified. But as going back to comedy, the problem with saying you can't have this acceptable group being jokes about you can have this. Well, all jokes came from the same place, the intention to be funny. Good jokes and bad jokes. And you don't know if someone's going to be offended or laugh until the joke comes out of your mouth. So self-censorship before you even say something is going to kill
It's a really interesting debate about, as well, in a society where we want to make people laugh, where do hate speech crimes and the line sort of come in that? And I think it's a very blurred line, and I think we all agree that what is the most frustrating thing about it is the double standards, that we do seem to say, well, some communities you can joke about, some you can't, and some we get outraged about, and some we don't. And I think we all agree that that's slightly annoying and slightly moronic. Really good to talk to you both, though. Connor Tomlinson, Salman Shaheen, thank you for taking the time this morning. And